Hey, what's up YouTube? Enforcer 5150 here, and today we're going ahead and checking out the DLSS for Nvidia RTX cards. In this video I'm using the RTX 2080 and I am using the i9 9900K system build. You can check out the links in the description for any more information for the hardware being used here. Anyway, DLSS is enabled right now, and we are getting about 51 frames per second in just this one static area, just kind of taking a look at everything to see how it actually works. So we'll take a look at everything here, and keep in mind that once you get the RTX card and you have everything running, what you have to do is you actually have to have it in 4K. There's no other way. You can't use it in 1440p or 1080p. It must be in 4K, or else DLSS won't actually be enabled. It'll just be grayed out, so you're not able to use it. Anyway, taking a look at all this here, you can kind of see, you can tell that it is in 4K, but it's not a native 4K. You really can't tell when you put these things side by side, and that's kind of like what we're hoping for. I mean, if you really take a close look at everything, you can start to tell that it's definitely not 4K. But as you can see, we have everything on the highest settings except for the anisotropic filtering. That was actually a mistake. I did record it over and over, like many times, and that's why we don't have actual sound. Everything was going wrong for my video this week. Anyway, as you can see, when I turn it off and use TAA, we dropped down about 10 frames per second. Before we were getting around 49, 50, and now we get about 30 to 39 to 40. And really, running 4K on here has always been a bit demanding. So you want to take into account that when you have the DLSS on and you get 10 frames per second, you are getting quite a bit, even on the RTX 2080. Just getting that at 49 in a console type game like this, it's not that bad. And if we look at it by side here, you really can't tell which one. I mean, unless I tell you, because the left is the 4K and the right is the DLSS. And if you look really close at it, you can definitely tell with 300% zoom that the left side, you can see that there's a little bit more jagged edges, and on the right side, it's a little bit softer. What I like looking around, like the rims or the white wall on the tire, you can tell that it's just a little bit softer than how the actual native 4K is. And a lot of people, will probably disagree with me, and that's fine. But the right side, with it being a little bit softer, I think is actually a little bit better. It adds a little more realism or feel to it. Even though that the left side is a little bit crisper, it's definitely a lot more straining on your system. Anyway, here we go with everything on high on the DLSS, and you can see that the biggest problem that I actually have is it being a consistent frame per second. It kind of goes in between the 40s and 50s, and it depends on like how much smoke. Like, I've found that the smoke is definitely one of the killers for the system. As soon as like a lot of smoke starts coming up and you add in light with that, you don't really even stay in the 40s. It goes down even further. Like, this boss fight here is definitely one of the ones that has like a lot of effects that are going on, and graphically it's probably one of the most demanding that I've come across in the game. I was actually further than this, and then my daughter accidentally overwrit my save, and it drove me nuts. But anyway, as you can see, like right here where the smoke comes up, and I paused to get an elixir, but as you see here, with this smoke coming up, it drops down into the 30s and stuff like that, and that's actually something that you don't want with most games. Once you start going down under 30 frames per second, that's where I consider even console type games like Final Fantasy 15, where it's not playable. In the 40s and stuff like that, it's definitely a playable experience. You can still have fun gaming. Anyway, here we go with the 4K native resolution without DLSS, And you can see, I'm getting, 10 frames less per second almost consistently, because before around here, we were getting about 40s, and then it was dropping down to like the 30s and stuff like that. And now here is where it's not really playable. When I played, most of this game, because it's been a while since I played, and I'm just freaking terrible. But when I played this, it was definitely, I played it at 4K, but I had to drop down some settings whenever I got close to a fight or something like that. I did put it in 4K as much as I could, because when I play a game like this, I like using a controller, and I like playing it on like my 55-inch TV, so that you can get that full experience, and 4K HDR. And I was gonna do this in HDR, but I don't know how many people really have HDR capable. I mean capable TVs, yes, but you have to actually use the Google Chrome to be able to view the 4K HDR. Anyway, here we go into a little bit more of the daylight and standard bosses that you normally, or not bosses, but standard mobs that you would actually run into in the game. This is just one of the ones that's left over from the night, and you usually would run into them. But as you can see, my DLSS is on here. And you can definitely tell that I'm getting more frames per second. In this area, it's more wide ranged. But once you start looking at like this area where it's huge and open and all that, and then you have all this stuff coming off the ground, it starts going down and sticking at the 50 frames per second that we were seeing in the beginning, where I was just in a static location. So we're gonna change this a little bit here. And this is one of the things, like you turn off stuff like the VXAO and some of the Nvidia options, you'll start seeing a little bit more of the frame increase, but I wasn't really able to fully get over the 60 frames per second, even taking off Hairworks, taking off the Turf Effects, Shadow Labs, and all that. And then I even tried to manipulate some of the other graphics as well. But as you see here, like this is like fine for Final Fantasy. Now if we were doing something like a first-person shooter or something like that, then I definitely would, I'd want to see more, and I probably wouldn't be running it in 4K. But really, I mean, if you take a look at this, and you kind of notice that the high graphics that you're getting is not a true 4K. I kind of implore anybody to like really be able to tell just by first look, or just playing them side by side. They're so close that it's actually pretty nice to see. And I know 10 frames per second is not that much, but it definitely is enough. And that's why I wanted to do some of these magic effects and stuff like that, just to kind of see what we would actually get if we increase some of the elements that are going on around. Anyway, really, I gotta say, my personal thoughts on this is that the DLSS is really new. They've already mentioned that it is beta, and that they could actually increase this and get better performance out of these. Much like they've already proven to us with ray tracing, where we were getting terrible frames on the 2080. I was getting about, I think it was 40 frames per second with the medium settings on Battlefield 5. And then, once they put out that patch and the developers actually started, working on the technology, it jumped up, and I was able to get 60 frames per second, and even use some of the high ray tracing to get a little bit of a playable game in in single player. Now this is 1440p with just some of the settings down on it's on just high, not highest. But as you can see, I'll get 58 frames per second in this area, and it's pretty much what you would expect to get with everything maxed out in 1440p. You get 55 to 60 frames per second, but what you're supposed to get with the DLSS is how they originally told us, is that you would get a 1440p image in 4K. So if that was true, this should actually be giving us a lot more FPS than what we're actually getting. So it is close. It's definitely close. So I don't want to discredit that completely. But I do see higher frames when I use just the 1440p. But then again, this could just be the early technology and stuff like that. And once developers get on board, we're going to see a little bit better performance with that as well. So what I found to be some of the best settings probably to use where you can kind of stay over 60 frames per second was to put everything at average with DLSS on and be in your 4K image. It's still decent looking. It's not as good, definitely not as good as having everything maxed out, of course, but you do keep a good frames per second. If you want to stay over or around that 60 frames per second, having everything at average and turning off some of the Nvidia extras, that will definitely get you to that kind of desired area. Like you see, I'm going down to the 50s and stuff, and this is what I was talking about where it's not consistent. Like you want to see it stay over 60 frames per second, but the gap or amount that you actually lose is quite a lot. And you'll see that my lowest FPS is 51, and my average is 59, and in my max I think it was 86. But putting on the effects and stuff like that, like here you'll see that it drops down to the 50s, and now I go down to 49 as my low, and then you'll see that's what I mean. It's not very stable at 4K, and I'd like to see it a little bit more stable, but we just have to wait for it, I think. And that's where I go into where they've been developing this stuff as a proprietary code for the last 10 years, and just now they brought this up with all these new developers and stuff like that has never seen this code before. They have no idea what to do with it, so it's going to take a little time. The fact that Battlefield 5 was able to catch up really quickly with the ray tracing, and that was I want to say it was like a month, maybe under a month, that they were able to start adapting the new technology and made it work better. Now, if they could get DLSS working in Battlefield 5, that'd be awesome. But I don't know if that's going to be one of their priorities, because not that many people are running 4K Battlefield 5, because you want more frames per second in a first-person shooter. A lot of people, most people I should say, play the online, and they're not really looking for a single-player experience like something like Final Fantasy. So it does make sense that's why they put their focus in here. And I realized that the DLSS has actually been out on their demo or their benchmarking tool for a little while now. Anyway, this is all I'm going to do for this video. Hopefully we get some more information and updates on this DLSS. I want to pass a question on to you guys. What do you think of the DLSS, and do you think that it's going to be advanced? Do you think that they're going to actually start fixing this, and that it's going to be a mainstream thing to use? And do you think AMD is going to try to step into the reins with the deep layer super sampling and try to adapt that technology anytime soon? Because it seems like they've been behind on some of this new technology lately. With this deep layer super sampling, I definitely think that is something that a lot of people are going to adapt. The ray tracing, maybe not. And this is more what I wanted to buy the RTX card for. So that's all we have for today. So make sure you slam that like button and definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel. Y'all take care and happy gaming.